Well, as I said, those who know me know that I like to start on time, and I have 12 noon right on the dot. Welcome to our January Podium Performance Series. My name is Lynn Boudreau, and I work with Sport PI, and we are pleased to be hosting today the first podium performance of the new year. And we do this in partnership with Canadian Sports Centre Atlantic. And Coach New Brunswick, Coach Nova Scotia, and Coaching Newfoundland. We respect and acknowledge the Indigenous people as the keepers of the land upon which we are meeting virtually today. But here in Prince Edward Island, I am on unceded Mi'kmaq territory, and we welcome you to add in the chat where you are from in Turtle Island, because I know we have some from PEI, some from Newfoundland, some from New Brunswick. I even saw a couple from Ontario that were signed up for today's session. Please ensure that your full name, and if you can add your NCCP number as well, that way I can check you off and make sure that you get your points in the locker for attending today. And as I've already turned on the recording, it will be recorded, and then I'll hand it over with Allison, and they'll be able to put it up on the Canadian Sports Centre Institute's YouTube page. So we will do that. But I am just so pleased and thankful to have Dr. Shauna Taylor with us today. It is bright and early in BC, but she's going to share with us coach self-care and who are some of your board of directors that maybe work with you during your self-care. Dr. Taylor is a professor of sports psychology, and I think that may be how Sean Fisher knows her when she said that he was there. She's at UBC Vancouver in the high performance coaching and technical leadership program. But for the past 20 years, Dr. Taylor has supported athletes, dancers, musicians, and other high performance professionals. And her approach seems to be around person first and performer second. And she's also involved with, she continues to run her private practice, and she's executive director with Sports Center out in BC, and she works with Via Sport with BC Girls. And we're just so excited to have her today. She is committed to coaches at the grassroots levels all the way up to the Olympics and the Paralympics. And I'm going to turn it over to her. Thank you.
Well, I hope I can live up to my intro. What the heck? Thank you so much, Lynn. And that is exactly how I know Sean. He's one of our standout, amazing participants in our high performance coaching and technical leadership program. So that's the wonders of this fantastic technology, is that we can do things all across Canada now, which is amazing. And I was absolutely thrilled when, there's my mug with full hair and makeup and lighting. And some of my affiliations that you've already gone over, but maybe I'll just touch base on them again and highlight a couple in particular that maybe you didn't bring up. One is, maybe if everyone can just mute their mics as well, but there'll be a time if we want to do some discussion or make some comments. I might be prompting you to see if we can do a bit of a brainstorm at different parts where and also at any time you're free to enter things in the chat box too. And maybe Lynn, you can help me monitor that chat box if some questions come up. But you can see on the right-hand side, we've got the Canadian Centre for Mental Health and Sport. So some of you might not even know about our center. And that center is actually made available to high-performance athletes and coaches across Canada. In particular, if they are carded athletes on national and have development cards across national sport organizations, they have access to working with us through Game Plan, which is through the Olympic and Paralympic Committee. And it's been amazing. We've been up and running for many years now, and having coaches also reaching out and providing support to them has been, I think, a huge step in the right direction, because let's face it, you are the pillars of the sports system. So if coaches aren't taking care of themselves and their own needs, who's going to, right? And so we're so busy taking care of everyone else, our athletes, our peers, managing parents and expectations of outside stakeholders, the organizations that we work for. It's really easy to put ourselves second. So I'm going to challenge you to think about maybe shifting some of that and making sure that you get yourself on your own self-care agenda. And in particular, we're going to explore one really innovative and I think important tactic that I use, which is my own personal board of directors. So this isn't the board that I report. I do report to several boards of directors, but not that kind of board. This is your own personally assembled professional development and self-care board of directors. Wanted to quickly acknowledge, since we're all sharing, the territory on which we reside and have the amazing blessing to live and work and play. Mine is the Syilx Nation, which is in the Okanagan Valley in the South Central British Columbia. And so happy to be here. So how we're going to go through this today on our, it's lunch and learn for you. For me, it's breakfast and learn, but that's okay. Actually, technically, it's only coffee and learn. I'm not going to be eating while delivering this session. Of course, you can feel free to. We're going to go through coaching self-care, some different definitions and terms that I think are really important to acknowledge, some skills that maybe some of you have already taken some professional development on, but for some of you, this may be new, some of this material on mental health, self-awareness as a coach, your different zones of performance as a coach mentally. And we're then going to transition as we sort of move into the meat of the presentation on what that board of directors could look like. Who would be on it? What does it even mean? What would it be for? How static is it? Right? And it could even be that you actually already have a lot of the pieces in place of who's on this informal board of directors, but you've just never really conceptualized it like this before. Okay, like I've loosely referred to those people as my personal network, or those are my friends, or that's my preferred go-to team, right? Whatever you want to call it, that's fine. But this concept you can maybe formalize a little bit more, and it can really add as a huge mental and emotional and professional support for you moving forward. So that's a big piece that we're going to be discussing in the middle. And feel free to pop things into the chat box at any time if you need to. And I'll be prompting you along the way. If there's some things that maybe you want to share with the group or just interact with me, that would be awesome as well. So let's make sure we use that chat box. So let's start with talking about coach wellness, right? Because that's why we're here. That's why I think primarily I was invited, was to share some ideas on ways to support you and your performance and your well-being. So if we're going to talk about coach wellness, we need to think about where you fit in this bigger sports system. And you'll see on this slide here, I just say, we've shifted to this. Let's take care of athletes. Let's make sure we're managing safe sport and we're doing safe and ethical coaching practices. But we also need to know that you deserve a sport environment, internal and external, that fosters your mental health as well. So developing your own self-care strategies and a board of directors might be a couple tactics and ways to do it. I hope also you can pick up or reflect on a little bit today what you can do to improve your mental health support systems. So maybe you've got some stuff in place, but you could use some improvement. What can you also do to prevent burnout? I am going to address this concept of burnout today because it is rampant. I think it's one of the most insidious and very divisive and debilitating phenomenon that can really take a coach down. And it can happen slowly and incrementally, or it can hit like a brick wall. So let's be mindful of what some of those early signs might look like and things that we can do to prevent it. And then also maybe just talking globally about how working in the sports sector could affect our mental health. So it could be on a positive route, or it could have some detrimental effects. So why is coach wellness important? Well, the coaching environment is, it has significant factors in it that will create this perception of well-being or ill health as well. You can see here on the right-hand side, the Journal of Sport and Exercise Psychology actually delved into coach wellness and psychological well-being. Coaches that have like a lower work-life conflict and have more enhanced balance are seeking things like professional development, like you're doing today on your lunch hour, and have a sense of stronger job security and these feelings of mental health and well-being, those coaches tend to last longer in their positions, right? We even see a translation into performance outcomes. And honestly, like I said before, it's the backbone of the sports system. So we need to be really mindful of how this balance and coaches self-managing, but also how our system provides support to those coaches all play together instead of shifting all of the focus on managing the athletes. We have to make sure we start restoring some of that balance for ourselves. You'll see this last bullet on the left-hand side that coaches with high work-life conflict, meaning you've got your work demands, but then you've got your personal and life demands as well. And if those have a huge conflict and very few opportunities for personal development, for example, the perception of not being able to adapt and having higher levels of stress and having psychological ill-being are so much higher, right? And they're in these controlling environments and tend to transfer that onto their athletes. So not only is this affecting how coaches are managing themselves, but we can see it translate in the type of environment that they're running. So there is a correlation between how you're personally feeling and how you're managing yourself and how your teams and your environments are running as well. So there are lots of micro and macro reasons, so internal and external sports system reasons, why we need to be supporting coaches more. Why care for yourself? Why fight burnout? Well, you've probably heard about what athletic burnout looks like in your athletes, right? So some of the things you'll see lowered motivation. You'll see fatigue, mental and physical fatigue. And as that stress starts to continue and goes on, you start wondering, why am I even doing this? So athletes will say that. I'll see them in my office. This is why they're coming to see me. But coaches can go through this exact same thing. And I don't know if anyone, we don't have to share this. This is an internal reflection, but I want you to think about, have there been times in your life where you have been very close to this idea of coaching burnout and personal burnout? Or do you feel like you're possibly on that track right now, right? So maybe today could be that turning point where you acknowledge there's some of these flags going on for me personally, and I would like to now see if I can develop some strategies to manage it better. So here is a list. This is not an exhaustive list, but this is what I'm hearing a lot. So at the university where I teach, in my sports center that I run in British Columbia as part of the Sport Institute, and in my private practice. So one thing in competitive sport, of course, that pressure to succeed. So coaches needing to feel like their program has to show some success markers in this uncertain environment, or either your job is up for grabs, or parents and athletes and stakeholders are going to start getting upset. So that pressure is kind of omnipresent, right? There's also a sense of global uncertainty. Many budgets are down, right? We're in a recession, so money is tight. And so there's there's uncertainty on a lot of levels. It could be fiscal uncertainty or even just the stability of the system, meeting maybe those personal or family needs and expectations, interpersonal challenges. So not all of our athletes came out of the pandemic era in the same way that they went into it, right? There were a lot of changes. There were a lot of gaps. Some coaches and sports system stakeholders are calling it like a lost generation. There were 2-3 years worth of athletes who were missing some core developmental progressions. And now we're trying to make up for it. And that puts a lot of extra pressure on coaches to help remediate that fact. We've also got increase in things like illness, or maybe a decrease in things like immune systems. And that means if we're feeling more run down, we're more prone to injury and illness. And then just generally that sense of overwhelm, right? And any pre-existing conditions that you might have had before, now you add some feelings of burnout and stress on top of that, it starts to load up. So different ways that we can enhance wellness, let's talk about what wellness is. So wellness is quality of life, it's well-being, right? It's not necessarily how physically fit you are. That's not the whole totality of what wellness is. It isn't a form of alternative medicine, right? Wellness is sort of how you've built your lifestyle. It's who you are. It's not necessarily what you do. So it's a descriptor of your sense of well-being and your quality of life, right? And how do we enhance that? And are there ways that we can do that that don't take a ton of money, but they do take some creativity and they take some commitment? So here are some of the different categories that I want to now sort of getting into some of those strategies. What are they? So being more self-aware of who you are and where you are on the wellness continuum. What are some boundaries that you can set with your current job requirements or what's expected of you personally and professionally? And could you create something like a support network, like a board of directors? And then different self-care things that you can implement on a daily basis. So these are the areas that we're going to go over now. And this will be the place to take mental note. I know this is going to be recorded. Is this going to be available then afterwards as well so they can go through and press pause, Lynn? Yes?
Yes, it
Okay.
will, Shauna.
Okay, great. Okay, super. Because I'm a fast talker. I apologize in advance. Okay. So first of all, so some of the resources that we developed at the Canadian Centre for Mental Health and Sport, this was actually a check-in sheet that was developed for athletes because it was developed in the middle of a crisis when a lot of events were being canceled and athletes were under a tremendous amount of stress and duress, wondering what was going to be happening, particularly in that Tokyo Olympic year. And so sort of looking at some of these zones that we got those athletes to identify, and we did the same thing for the coaches. So what's their comfort zone? What do things look like when they're going through the day and they're in their comfort zone, the green zone? That's pretty easy to recognize, right? All green, systems are go. My memory's functioning relatively well, right? I can manage the daily stressors that come and go. I feel like I have adequate energy and cognitive function to focus on tasks. When we get into the challenge zone, and this is where we spend a ton of time in sport, right? We're always pushing. We're having to work on lower reserves. Maybe we need to take more breaks. Maybe we're finding some breaks in focus are happening. Maybe we're feeling some emotional upheaval. We had some disturbances in sleeping. Our energy isn't as high as it usually is. And that emotional platform's a little more unstable. So that's usually where we need to start employing and paying attention and going, okay, you know what? I need to step away for a second, or I need a coffee, or I need to connect with a friend, or maybe it's time for a call to one of my board of directors, right? When we're in that challenge zone, the stop zone is the zone we don't want to get to. The stop zone is where we're in sort of critical zone. You're lashing out. You're not even showing up, right? You're having trouble performing those daily tasks. You may not even want to get out of bed. You may not be sleeping. Stress has overwhelmed you, right? So these are the areas we know that it's fairly typical that you're going to be cycling in through green and yellow, but it's when we're in that red zone that we really want to make sure we build in some of these strategies like a board of directors before we get into that red zone, right? So with that, when we do that, we empower our athletes. So share this idea with your athletes to be aware of their zone too, right? Okay, so we don't get to red zone as we're approaching playoffs. Here's some things that we're going to do. We're going to do a fun team builder. We're going to make sure we add some adequate rest and recovery. We're going to make sure that we have some elements or some maybe a guest speaker come in and help us manage some of that additional stress. So we've identified in that yearly training plan where those typical zones start to flare up more and more often. So you as a coach are self-monitoring yourself, not just your athletes, right? So build protections in your work plans for those red zones where you know they're going to be more commonplace. And this board of directors is around all year round. So this is something, this strategy I'm about to introduce, that can be there 12 months a year, right? It helps you in the preseason. It can help you when you're in the thick of performing as a coach. And then when you're in that shoulder or off season, and then you get back into unplugging and back into planning mode, they can still be there too. So making sure you're checking your own battery. Any questions thus far about the zones? Has anyone seen those zones before? You might have already had some work shops done through CSI Pacific, perhaps, about this. Is this a new graphic for a lot of you? Or have you seen this before? This idea, the color zones of mental health indicators. Not sure if that's going to look familiar, but perhaps for some of you. So I'll make sure as well. I was thinking, Lynn, maybe I can send the resources that I reference as well. Would there be a way to disseminate those?
Yes, I have the whole list and all their emails. So you send me whatever you'd like and we'll ship it out.
Okay, awesome. Because that way, yeah, they can have them as a takeaway and something that they could even use with their teams. So some though, a couple, so Trudy and Glenna, they said they're familiar in the chat box, which is awesome. But for obviously many of you, this might be new material. So it could be useful. I'll make sure that I get that to you as well. So this idea of the battery life cycle, okay? This I like to introduce to athletes for sure. They seem to respond. I mean, the stoplight is good. Everyone's seen a stoplight, but we work a lot with electronics these days. So trying to relate to different generations, where they are, and where they are is on a battery. So using battery terminology seems to resonate really well, and having sort of our own self-awareness of our own batteries, sort of where we're at, is not a bad idea. You could do this daily. You could do this sort of midway through the morning as you're setting the stage for the demands ahead of you. You've taken a look at your schedule and, okay, I'm already feeling like I'm not 100% at this point. So where are some natural breaks I might need to be building in some time here? Or I know by the afternoon, when I've had this really taxing morning, I'm running an early morning practice, I'm going to need some recovery. I'm going to give my buddy a call. I'm going to do my own workout, right? And replenish my own energy stores. How can we start building this tactically into our day? This was never talked about when I started coaching. I don't know about you, but this was so not part of it. It was all athlete centered. It was all about managing expectations of stakeholders and parents and whoever I had to report to. Very little was discussed. It was almost as though we took the self out of coaching. It was like coaching is selfless, right? And I think we have to re-examine the way that we're looking at coaching now, the way we look at a lot of leadership roles. It's not selfish to take care of yourself. That's actually a really strong and positive practice, right? And I'm just taking a peek here in some of the great comments. So Trudy's saying she likes the range. You know how the stoplight's good, but this pulls it apart a little bit more. So it isn't just, green, yellow, red. This is more like there's more nuances when we're self-assessing. And so if we have a language of self, which is what this essentially is, it's enhancing our language of self, right? Where we can describe who we are and where we're at, then we can look at actually having a sense of agency over changing it if we want to, or accepting this is where I'm at. I am at a low energy day. It is what it is. So how may I need to make some compensations and not beat myself up about it, right? Maybe today is not the day I do the highly mentally taxing demand, right? Maybe I put that off till tomorrow. I get a good night's sleep or I get someone to help me and I tackle that tomorrow. So building resilient teams means we have to move away from this narrative that you can handle it all as a coach and give that impression that you can actually have something like an internal board of directors, right? And ask for help when you need it. You can lead this change, right? You can be the kind of coach that models this self-care and models that asking for help and having your own support network is actually good standard practice. It's a positive way to live your life. I don't know if you can hear my dog, but he's deciding that now is I don't know. Is it my door's closed, fortunately, but he's doing his job, which is essentially making sure no one is in my front yard. Okay. So personal impacts vary for sure. And before we dig into the meat of the board of directors, just making sure that, again, like Trudy said, you've got that threshold within you, right? And that threshold is very nuanced, but being more aware of it is one step towards being able to manage it, right? So being aware, catching yourself when you might be distracted by super negative, maybe self-defeating thoughts too, pause, figure out where you're at, right? Maybe take a little more training on something like mindfulness, which is using some intentional breathing, a little bit of a time out for yourself, and drawing your attention to the present moment. Not too much worrying into the future, but not too much chastising yourself for mistakes you made in the past. Staying really present focused. That's how mindfulness practice works. So, wow, I'm really not selling how easy it is to coach, am I? It's like, it's draining, but it actually is. It's super energizing, but it's also draining, right? It can be both things. That's the paradox of life. Is there a lot of things within our lives as humans that can do more than one thing? So not everything is so black and white, and having this sense of a community of support around you that you assemble yourself, that you have handpicked based on trust, who they are, maybe their levels of competency in certain areas, can really help create that sense of like a mental sort of backstop, I think, that can really help. So what would that board of directors look like? Okay. And everyone's got their different theories. I was so thrilled when Lynn told me that one of my former students, Laura Watson, that works for Own the Podium, actually mentioned that she heard about this from me in one of my classes. So I was really thrilled that it struck her so much that it ended up becoming a project for her, and then later on really informing her career path. So that's how powerful it can be, this idea. So this personal board of directors, these are some of the great things about it that it's meant to do. So it can, of course, be a sense of support. It can help you think outside the box, because if we're just working with one mind, that's all we got, right? You're working with this board of directors. You get to bounce ideas off people whose mental makeup is very different from yours, and potentially will think of things that you haven't thought of, right? So that helps with things like decision making, gives the different perspectives. Maybe you've got some skill set gaps, right? And you may not even ever have any aspirations to get really all that much better in some of those gaps, just because we can only do so much. You're never going to be a chartered accountant if you're not one, right? So you've got someone who is, or you've got someone who's particularly adept at the financial side of planning, for example. You may want to have them in there as a sounding board, or someone who is that expert in that area to give you that kind of support and instruction and advice, et cetera, in a particular skill set area that could be useful for you. And I love that Lynn is sharing that some of her personal board of directors are on the call, which is amazing. So like, these are people that I actually, and shouting out to Randy as well. So he's on my internal long distance board of directors too. I'm never going to be a physiotherapist. I'm just not, right? I'm not going to have that. I decided there was a fork in the road where I went more on the psychological side and social side of human functioning. And I took some anatomy courses, but I'm never going to have, some of the leadership and coaching and physiological understanding that someone like a Randy has, right? So it can give you real world action-oriented advice. And I could honestly, this list could just keep going on and on and on and on. So these are just some of the things that you can do. Okay. Oh, Randy's anointing me an honorary physio. Thank you. My oldest kid became a physio, Randy, as you know. So I think I get to be in the physio family, right? If I have a physio as a kid. Exactly. So who is going to be on that board and how big is it? Well, I mean, I'm not going to tell you exactly how many you need, but I would say on average, or for a typical personal board of directors, you might want something. You could keep it super tight. You could keep 3 or 4, but I like having about, and it's going to be dynamic, right? Because it's going to change just as you change, just like friendships and people come and go based on convenience or logistics in your life, or where you're at, or the kind of job you have. But it could be somewhere between 5 to 10 people that have different roles. They play a different character, I suppose, in your story, right? And they may evolve as well. So they came in as a technical support, or they came in with one particular skill set, but you got to know them. Maybe even you developed a friendship. You got to know each other better, and you realized you were able to support each other in other ways too. So that's the cool thing about forming human relationships, is they're never static. And so they're really, this is where you can have some fun with it. So 5 to 10 could be smaller, could be bigger, completely up to you, but definitely could evolve. So here are some other considerations that you might want to think about with this idea of well, who the heck's on the board, right? And you're not necessarily, they're not going to meet each other, probably. I mean, some of them might because they know each other. But in my case, my board of directors, I've got some that even live in Europe. So, I mean, my dream is that some of them would be able to meet someday because I'm the commonality. And I think we all would actually get along really well. But that's not the purpose, is that we have a big jamboree once a year. The jamboree happens sort of in my mind. And I reach out to them and have individual meetings, sometimes over coffee with the ones that are within the same time zone. We could meet together, but a lot of times it's just sort of virtual connections, phone calls, or one-on-ones with this board member. So you can see from the list here, think about some colleagues. So there might be somebody right now. So if you're feeling kind of isolated, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling, because like I think I mentioned earlier in one of the slides, it can be draining, but also leadership can be lonely, right? It can be really lonely. You feel like, well, I don't want to let everyone know my vulnerabilities. I'm the leader. I'm supposed to have my stuff together, right? Somebody's got to see behind the curtain. Someone's got to be back there with you, right? Even the conductor of the orchestra has a support system, right? The CEO has to have someone to lean on in order for the company to function. He or she needs to function, right? So it could be a colleague that you currently have. So it could be your assistant coach. It could be somebody that's already within your internal team, or it could be someone with whom you had a really great working relationship in a past relationship, right? And think, it's been years since I connected with them, but they were part of the reason that I love that job so much. I'm going to reach out, see what they're up to. Because odds are, if you got along then, unless you've done a dramatic personality shift, and somehow you've done some deep dive into another persona, odds are they're still going to be very compatible for being someone that you'd want to spend some time with or throw some ideas by. So you may want to reach out and strengthen some of those collegial relationships that maybe you've kind of let go due to other demands. So it could be past roles and current roles as well. There may be someone as well that you sort of look to, maybe even from afar, as being a mentor, or based on a very formal arrangement, they were advising you. But now things have transitioned and it's very voluntary, where you remain and stay connected with them, and you look to them as someone that has experience and maybe life experience that you don't have. And that's very enriching for you. So those people, I think, are essential on this board of directors. You want at least one, maybe two of them to be really in that advisor, sort of mentor role in a certain area. Could be that you went through some very specific training, and while you were there was someone who was in the trenches with you and really seemed to have this good connection with you, and you felt a sense of trust, but also, hey, this person has a lot of value in who they are, and I want to stay connected with them. They'd be a great person to bounce ideas off of. So think back to training, courses you've taken, different roles like that. Could also be another coach in exactly your role. So you're a varsity head coach, right? Or you are leading a provincial sport organization, or you are a coach that has been selected for a major games like a Canada Games, for example. But there's your compatriot in another sport who is doing exactly what you're doing, going through all those same stressors, maybe having a lot of those same challenges, but in another sport. So they're not a direct competitor, but can really share and have a lot of sympathy, maybe, but also some really cool ideas about how they're managing things in their sport that could translate to yours. So you take out of the equation some of that competition, and that can be a really great dynamic too. It's what I actually really like about the UBC program that I teach in, is that there's so much variety in the coaches. It's extremely rare that they're people who are going to face each other on the field of play. So it really lowers, I think, the guard and the defenses where people can really share because it's inter-sport sharing, right? And then other leaders, right? So they don't have to be coaches. So they can just be some kind of leader role where they've got that sense of responsibility. They've got that professional pathway. Could be in sport, could be non-sport, doesn't really matter. And then, I'm going to throw in here the levels of life experience because I think it's really important. Sure, that's great to always be looking ahead at someone who is a mentor. I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm 90. Who's going to live to be 105? This 15 years older than me curriculum. But anyway, we could be looking at someone who definitely has the more life experience, but let's make sure that we stay connected with each generation that is following us as well. That is really key. Getting youthful, new, fresh ideas, both from your peers, those that have already walked the road ahead of you, and those that are coming up that road now. So seeing things from a fresh perspective, make sure you've got some of those youngins on your board of directors too. It's really important. My kids are on mine, honestly, because now they're all young adults and they have got some amazing ideas that I just simply, my old brain doesn't think of. So it's really important to take a look at also age and stage of life that board might look like. And is there someone on there, these last two ideas, who kind of works in that wellness area? So maybe it's someone that really has decided that it's their life mission to work in a wellness role. So that could be healthcare, that could be mental health, that could be social work, that could be, and I would even link it in with education as well, because education kind of fits in with that wellness piece, but is still different, right? So someone who's an educator for a living or fancies themselves to be a teacher of something in particular, right? So you want those kinds of people on it. Does anyone have anything that they would want to add to this list? Think of if some of you already now have been having the wheels turn, now that you know what the heck I'm talking about, you're thinking, okay, I kind of have a loosely formed one already. What am I missing on here? Is there something I maybe haven't thought about? I did mention family. So my own kids are on there. Anyone got something that maybe I've forgotten or something that you would want to add to enrich this particular list? It's fairly diverse, but I know that it's not by any stretch, completely complete, right? I don't know. Just to get the thinking cap going. So this could be a foundation, and then that's the cool part about it, is you get to decide what the different roles or the different types of people that you would pull in here. And it could even be that, let's just take as an example, the coach is in a different organization. It doesn't just have to be one. There could be four of you. And in this type of setup, especially if you're in particular scenarios where you've got a lot of commonality in your day-to-day, but your sport cultures are so different, you come at it from different levels, that's a lot of diversity right there. Just by having, say you find that your board of directors has quite a few coaches on it, but they're from different sports maybe. Or they're from the same sport, but they're coaching different levels or in different provinces with different constraints. We want to make sure that we're not getting into groupthink. And I'm sure you've heard of groupthink before, but it's where, you've got a group, it's a group dynamics phenomenon where you've got more than one person all in one situation together. And eventually the loudest and most, I guess this quest for harmony means you'll go to the quickest and maybe loudest solution too soon without fleshing everything out. And you start just thinking in that lowest common denominator way. Sean has some great ideas in here. So he has specifically sort of the chef, the conductor, director, CEO in the chat box, which is awesome. So how everyone wants to conceptualize that is totally up to you. And it's like so awesome to think about, what could that look like for me? And as I learn and grow in my career, what are the kinds of roles and the kinds of things I'm looking for as I assemble that? And and so the next piece, so if those are the roles, or if those are the people, what are the roles or what are maybe some categories that they need to fit into in your board of directors? Because they're going to be there for different reasons. It's not a panacea, like one person becomes everything, right? First thing they all have to have this with you. This is key, very, very key, is trust. Okay. Without this, bye-bye. Okay, they got to go. All right. So for me, and I got a really high trust meter, I got to tell you, after all these years. That makes me sound really suspicious and paranoid, doesn't it? That's not how I mean it to be. It's just I have to read people for a living and I have to help people for a living. So I also can be manipulated, right? Because they know that I want to help so much, right? And they know sort of how I'm wired. So now earning my trust and keeping my trust, it's a bit of an exercise, and that's okay. That's okay. Doesn't mean that I don't trust, doesn't mean that I don't want to keep on believing in people and hope that the best of intentions is usually the first thing that we see. I also know, there are also people that are very self-interested and the trust just might not be there. And that's okay. Then they just escort their way to the door. And that's okay too. But passing that trust meter usually takes some time, right? Takes some time. It's got to be reciprocal. So they likely need to feel like they can trust you too. So how you behave. So things like you're going to want to think about when we're having these conversations, do we have an unofficial? I just had one of my board of directors met last night via text message about a certain issue. We were four on the text. And at the end, I always put, it's this funny little, everyone knows what a GIF is or a GIF, a picture, and it's of a vault. It's of a vault door shutting. I always do that in the vault, like night, night, everyone. And we all do our night nights. And then I go vault, right? And I just show the graphic of the vault and then everybody does ha laughing emojis. But that is honestly what it is. I really do feel like the ways I've been vulnerable and the questions I have and the concerns that I had and that they had that we were sharing and finding solutions for, that was meant for those four people and those four people alone in that moment. And we will flag that when we want it to be kept confidential, for example. So they've got my best interests in mind and I have their best interests in mind, right? And there's reciprocity in that trust. So when you're assembling this idea I think this is actually a really great indicator just for true friendships, right? This is the definition of a friendship and of love. So trust, your best interest in mind. Think about those two things. So then take a look and think about, okay, so do I have people that are representing these different roles in my board of directors? So the people that are the true supporters, right? So these are the ones when you're feeling overwhelmed and you really need to be able to just let it all out, right? And you need someone to be able to build you up again and hold you up. Who are those people? They can help when you're down. They can listen without judgment. They can be there to support you. And you know that you can take your filter off. Are there some of those people on there? And because not everybody's super comfortable with that. Your highly technical experts, for example, maybe aren't the touchy feelings kind of person. That's okay too. It just might be a limitation that they have, and that's not the reason they're on your board. And that's okay. So that's not why you'd use them, right? You'd use these other folks in more of a supportive role, right? So who do you go to? Are some of them on that list to fill this particular support? And I know as when I was in the position of head coach, I needed these people a ton, especially when some stuff went down in our season that was really challenging around athlete selection, around people challenging our athlete selection. When you have conflict, you need some of these supporters to have your back, right? Because leadership is hard. Then you've also, though, you can't just have the soft place to fall people. You also have the people that are the provocative ones, the ones that will challenge you, and they will tell it like it is. And they will say, Shauna, was that the best decision? Or Shauna, I'm going to help you through this, but you need to look at this. You're looking at this from this angle. I think you want to know my honest opinion? And then they follow it up and they give it, right? So they challenge maybe an ideology or a place where I'm stuck. And I'm so stuck, I can't even see that I'm stuck there, right? Because I do tend to be a little bit stubborn. I don't know if I want to admit that on a recorded. I think anyone who's in a leadership role and feels strongly and deems themselves to be confident on some level has a layer of stubbornness, right? Because someone's got to believe in what you do, right? If not me, then who? So I believe it, but that can lead to some blinders sometimes. So in order to work past the blinders, I need my challengers. And one of my mentors, so annoying, is also my challenger. And I love her for that because she has a zero filter. And the reason I can take it from her is because I trust her. She trusts me. I've known her for a really long time, and she has my best interest in mind. She doesn't tell it to me to be mean, to hurt me. She tells it to so I can have a clearer view of reality and so I can grow. That's why she tells me. So make sure you have some challengers. Mix them up with the supporters because you need both. And guess what? You can probably be both too. You could be both. You need to play different roles and have different ideas and coping strategies and communication styles at different times, depending on what that person at the center of the network needs. And then I've already mentioned, so the mentor, right? So just has had more experience. They have already been in this role maybe 5-10 years before me. Or they may even be the same age as me, but they have more experience in a particular area than I do. I've started a new role or a new aspect to my career path, and I haven't done it before, and they have, or they are just so good at advice giving and stepping back and giving me that 2,000-foot role or that 2,000-foot view from macro way outside that I consider them to be a mentor. So do you have some people in your personal board of directors that play 1, 2, 3 of these roles, right? And is there some diversity there? There might be other kinds of people. Anyway, I mean, Sean gave a bit of a list there, the director, CEO, chef, conductor. Are there other types of people that you want in this or specific skill sets that are missing? These are kind of broader categories. This is what I tend to go with, but there could be others that I haven't thought of as well. Maybe I guess we could say like teachers, kind of the education side of things, but usually they're sort of embedded in that mentorship role, I find. And teaching and learning is part of challenging. So I kind of have included education and learning in there. So I don't know. It might not be exhaustive, but I like that idea. Ideas person. I like that, Judy. Ideas creator. Yeah, where's the artists on here? Right? Where's the musician? Where's the person? Where's the creative mind? Right? And that is really an amazing quality to have, like somebody who's the blue sky thinker, the one who's really good at that big picture, right? So I love that, Judy. So making sure you've got that creator, ideas person, brainstorm person. Who is that? What's that like, right? And while you're building that board, so it's part of having self-compassion, meaning a little bit kinder to yourself, right? Creating a little bit of space so that you allow yourself to make some mistakes, but creating, making sure that you've got this sense of being kinder to yourself, and you are trying to find in yourself the common humanity that you're allowed to make mistakes, you're allowed to have a tough time, and you're allowed to ask for help. And that hence having help seeking as one of your new things that you do in 2024. You know what? When I'm really struggling, instead of going inwards and shutting down and pretending like something isn't there, I'm going to seek help. I'm going to expand this network of mine. I'm going to create this board of directors of mine. Now we have less than 10 minutes left on the clock here, and I'm going to keep on asking for questions as we go through, but just let me know if at any point anyone has any questions about that. Have you heard of this term? Self-compassion and self-compassion practice. Has anyone come and done any talks before? Maybe you've read articles on this. This may be a new concept as well. But there's a psychologist in the US, Kristen Neff, who coined this phrase and who has started working and directing it specifically to sport, focusing on two populations in particular, athletes and coaches. And so when we're looking at self-compassion, we have to, first of all, just acknowledge when we are stressed and we are, feeling like we are hurting. The first one is self-awareness. The second one is acknowledging everybody hurts, right? Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody goes through this struggle and pain. And then the third one is we do a self-compassionate act. So we either, one really concrete action, you just take a hand over your chest. If you're feeling super stressed, you're getting chest pains, you're starting to shake even, you're feeling like emotions coming up and you're ready to get enraged perhaps. And you just have a self-compassionate moment and just be like, okay, I need to chill out and be kind to myself right now. Like I need to give myself a break. I'm doing the best I can. Okay. I'm going to take a second. I'm going to take a beat here. Right. So it's acknowledging, knowing where you are, honoring your humanity, and then doing a concrete action. So these three steps and having a more self-compassionate approach, having a board that you can go to for advice, sort of going down this checklist, have a check-in with yourself, right? You can use the stoplight, you can use the battery. Where are you at? Is it time for you to take a break? Or maybe it's time for you to seek advice or support with your board of directors. Or it's time for you to set a boundary. You know what? My assistant coach needs to start picking up slack. I need to start delegating, right? What are some self-regulation tools? Maybe some breathing, some mindfulness, go take a walk, right? Do some yoga, do something that's going to work for you that could be sustainable. This is an exercise that I do. I won't get into the details of it, but I can send it as a takeaway sheet to Lynn when she sends out different resources, but it's a stress bubbles exercise. You can do it with yourself and you can also have your athletes do it. So it's where you're just taking a look, where is all my stress coming from? Right. And for those of you that are visual learners, this gives you a really clear indicator of where the biggest source of stress is here. And in this particular coach, when they did it, it was number 6 here, job overload, right? Overload, too much on their plate for their job. And then they just ranked everything in sort of a cluster analysis here. Other tools, again, I'm going to send this along with some of the tools that I'm going to send to Lynn. So different ways that you can just take that mindfulness or self-compassion break in your day. Do one in the morning and one in the afternoon. Make sure you build them in there. They can fill your cup and they can recharge your battery. Some may even want to get an app, right? Some action plans and different apps like Calm, for example, have mindfulness exercises where you just close the door in your office or you just go take a moment in the field house while the athletes are out training. Take a second for yourself. Keep it handy. And that may be even on your phone, right? Make sure you brainstorm. You've got that board of directors, hopefully like Judy recommended, that it's someone who is in the creative zone that can help you come up with different ideas of what you need and when you need them. And I guess for a takeaway, specifically action-oriented, I hope you're going to be able to be more aware of where you're at and what you need and not always putting 100% of your effort into your athletes. I think that's amazing if you're very selfless, but you don't have to be selfless to be competent, right? Being self-aware isn't being selfish. It's taking care of yourself, right? Let's figure out ways to prevent it. And if we're burnt out, let's figure out how to recover. And let's use our board of directors and the resources out there around us to improve our situation. So those three are kind of the actions. And that's all I really had. How close am I to my, look at me, 8:55 BC time. I did it. I did it, Lynn.
You are amazing.
I stuck to the timeline, and even I've only gone through half my cup of coffee. How's that even possible?
Because you just kept talking and
I just kept talking, and can you tell I'm passionate about this material? Like, what the heck? But it's so important to me that all of you feel supported. And I was thrilled when Lynn reached out and said that this idea of the board of directors really resonated with her because she had one herself. And would I come and present it? And I thought, how soon can I start? So I was very happy to be here. Thank you so much. And I wish I could have got to know you all better, but it's the nature of these lunch and learn things. It's get in, get out. So
we've
you can
got
watch
3
it
minutes.
on
If
the,
somebody's got a
yeah.
question, if
Yeah, you
somebody's
got
got
a
a question for
question?
Shauna, unmute or put it in.
Anything at all. And also you'll have my if you need more information, you're going to get some from Lynn, but if there's something that's missing that I mentioned and you want more info on, Lynn and I are going to we always stay in contact. And you can vet some more questions through me as well, so we can get you some more resources. But thank you so much. Yay, it looks like people like the topic, so that's great. Hopefully they're being truthful in the chat box, but it looks like it. So that's awesome. Thank you for joining us.
I think they're being truthful.
Yay. Yay. I'd like to think it's a great idea. It's got me this far in my career and I'm still going. So something must work. But yeah, amazing. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks for your contribution, Judy. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Before everybody leaves, just real quick, if I can just quickly share.
You want me to unshare my screen?
Sure, if you wouldn't mind, that would be great. See if I can pick it up. All I want to, of course, I'm not seeing where it is. Okay, all I'm going to talk about is there's 2 upcoming events. There is another podium performance on Wednesday, January 24th from 7 to 8 p.m. with Dr. Chris Hartley. He's going to talk about 3 quick and easy coaching strategies. And if you haven't marked already on your calendar, the Atlantic Coaches Conference is coming April 19th to 20th. And early bird tickets will be on sale soon. So those are 2 other events. Look, the Sports Center Institute is sharing them down there. Thanks, Allison or Natasha, whoever was sharing them. So fantastic. Just so happy to have people. I know it's a busy day for everybody when you're at work and that kind of stuff, but thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And Shauna for my crazy ideas. And like I said, this all came from Laura Watson talking when I was at Sport Leadership. And I was like, wait, now I want to learn more about this. So thank you for sharing your concept with us. It's fabulous.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. Nice to meet everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Thanks, Shauna.
Bye. Nice to see you, Sean.
Yeah. See you on Thursday.
You bet. See you in class.
Yeah. This counts towards KIN 516.
Yeah, actually, check.
100%. Yeah.
Sean came even when he didn't have to. He came to class. So that's, bonus points.
I love
And
it.
Sean told his athletic director about it as well, and she was on. So
no way. See,
Yeah.
this
So
is how the
thanks
world
for
works.
saying those nice things about me while Jane was on that call. That was.
You like that? You like
Yeah.
that? Okay, there's reciprocity. You might be on my extended board. You might be
Okay.
on my extended board, right? Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
that's awesome. Good to see
Thanks so
you.
much. Yeah.
Have a
Bye-bye.
great rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
Bye now.
Shauna, that
fun.
was awesome.
I did speed talk, but I hope I didn't miss anything. I mean, I think I covered it. I usually just go over roles, the type of people, why they're there. And they're just such an important, we have to get people to ask for help and like open up and trust people again, because people
I have to
got so
stop recording. I have
isolated.
to stop